Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry, the king of wrestling Lawler. And in the next hour, you're going to see some pretty exciting video. You're going to see the highlights of my career. And I can guarantee you're going to see every kind of wrestler imaginable. Some of them so ugly that when they were kids, the parents had to sit them in the corner and feed them with slingshots. And you're going to see some hot action. I can guarantee you that. You heard the old saying, you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, believe me, we had a match that took place almost in a kitchen, and we're going to start the video with this. Tupelo, Mississippi, we're going back quite a few years. The action spilled out of the ring and into the concession stand.
The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Episode number 69 of Dinner with the King. I'm Glenn Moore, joined here by WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. King, you're in Florida. I'm back in Cleveland. I miss you already, buddy.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you do. You just missed that nice plush guest room of ours. The bed that you didn't ever make up. Did you realize that you didn't get up when you got up? You did not make your bed up.
That is a lie.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. You did? I didn't actually check. I just was figuring that I would trick you into admitting that. But you did make your bed up every day?
I made the bed up. I always kept that room nice and tidy. I always kept the bathroom nice and tidy. I even had the sheets and the towels washed before I left.
Yes, you did. I got to admit.
I'm a good guest.
Not a bad guest. But let's see. When are you coming back again?
I'll be back there next week.
What?
Just kidding.
Gee. I started looking at my book here. What next week? What's happening next week?
Next week? No. No, I don't know. Maybe, well, you're going to be gone. Well, you're on vacation now. You know, a much needed vacation for the King down in Florida. And then you have, we have another live event on Beale Street coming up on the 27th. That is next week. Oh, yeah. It's the, it's the Summer Meltdown?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Man, we have definitely been melting down here in Memphis. It's like still 95, 96 degrees every day. I'm down here in Florida to cool off. It's only 90 degrees every day down here.
Well, then you're going to be gone October. You're going to be down in Florida, and then you're going to be the Jericho cruise.
The Jericho cruise.
Hey, this is Chris Jericho inviting you to the first ever rock and wrestling rager at sea. Picture this: rock and roll, wrestling, comedy, live podcasting, all on the open ocean from October 27th to the 31st, 2018, from Miami to Nassau. I'm bringing Hall of Fame wrestlers, some of the greatest rock and roll bands on the planet, and putting the first wrestling ring on a cruise ship ever. Don't be a stupid idiot. Make the list. Check us out at ChrisJerichoCruise.com.
And Lauren just reminded me, she said, do you realize that Jericho cruise is going on? We'll be on the cruise at Halloween.
Yep.
She's a big decorator for Halloween.
Well, you guys will be gone for half the month.
And plus, we'll be gone. Yeah, we'll be gone for an entire week before Halloween, which that just kills your whole Halloween decorating.
Yeah. You're going to decorate down in Florida.
And no way. Not for Halloween.
But no, I mean, so I don't know when I'm coming back. Maybe I'll come back in November.
November, what's going on? You know, we do have the Memphis Comic Con, the Memphis Comic Expo, we call it.
Okay.
That's the 20th and 21st of November.
And then that following week is a special day for the King.
What? When's that?
That's the King's birthday.
Oh, wait, I'm still looking at October.
Oh, okay. I thought you said November.
The Memphis Comic Expo, I'm sorry, the Memphis Comic Expo is October the 20th.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about November.
Oh, now I'm looking at November.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a busy month.
Busy month.
Lauren booked me on a show the other day.
What?
Yes, it's crazy. That may be the first time that she's done that. She took over. Somebody sent I don't know why they sent a text or called Lauren, and next thing you know, she negotiated the whole thing and booked me in San Antonio on November the 2nd.
You sure not Spud Webb was trying to get hold of you?
No, it's not the phony account of Spud Webb.
Can we tell the story about Spud Webb trying to dupe the king? Well, so Spud Webb.
Hey, look, you looked at his account and you're saying, hey, look at everybody's friends with Spud Webb here. He had a blue check mark.
He had a blue check mark.
Okay, go ahead. You tell the first part of it.
So you go, oh, Spud Webb, follow me on Twitter, woo, and you followed back, and he sent you a message. What did he say to you? You're the king, or you're the man, or something?
Yeah, so you're a legend or something like that, But now you got to admit, I really didn't know I didn't remember who Spud Webb was. The most famous Spud that I remembered was Spud McKenzie.
so
you remember him, right?
Yeah. So
I had to ask Peyton who Spud Webb was. Now, this is crazy when you ask a 10-year-old, and he remembers exactly who Spud Webb was, and I didn't remember. But he was a basketball player, famous basketball player, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then so all of a sudden, he follows me, and we thought that it was Spud Webb. I see the blue check mark, and I say it's Spud Webb, and it says, shows all his credentials, a bunch of pictures on his Twitter page, and so anyway, he sends me this message on Twitter, and says, "Man, you're a legend," and all this kind of stuff, and let's see, what did he say? He's like, and I type back something like, I was a fan of yours and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, like in the second message, all of a sudden he says, can I get your phone number? And I'd like to hook up with you and Lauren sometime. And I went, wait a minute. So here's Spud Webb. I think where was it say he was, in Texas or California or something like that?
Well, he said he was in Atlanta.
But anyway, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, then I don't know, somehow he follows Lauren, and then Lauren follows him back, and she gives him our home telephone number. So then, but before he actually calls us, then I also look on and oh gosh, like you said, like JR was following him. There were a lot of, apparently a lot of wrestlers had followed him, and then Darius Rucker. I saw where Darius also followed Spud at Webb, and Spud writes a message to Darius, like the same thing that he had written to me, right? You're a legend, and then Darius wrote back to him, no, you're a legend. So then in the meantime, you were the man. You came and said, I think this is a fake account.
It's a fake.
And I said, I don't know, it can't. You can't really do the fake account with the blue check, right? And you said, yes, you can. And sure enough, our phone starts ringing, and I tell Lauren, I think this is the Spud Webb guy. Let's do not answer it, right? And so then, how many days? Like a couple days afterwards, right? You did you bust him out, or how did it happen?
So
next thing you know, the account was taken down.
Well, like he followed me. Well, I followed him, and then he followed me, and we DM'd each other. And he goes, "Oh, I see you. Do the podcast with the King. Could you get what's his phone number? Because I keep calling this number and no one answers." And he says the voicemail is full, the answer machine is full or whatever. And he says he keeps calling and no one answers. And I'm like, oh well, I'm not going to give out that information without confirming who you are. And he goes, look at my profile, I have a blue check mark. And I'm like, yeah. Then I was like, well, why don't you take a photo of yourself and have it written down like your Twitter handle. And then everything will be fine, Then I can give you the King's number. You guys can talk and whatever. And he goes, "Oh, okay." So he sent me photos that if you just Google Spud Webb, you find it online.
Right.
So I'm like, no, like send me a photo like right now with you holding up like written out your name. And he goes, "Oh, I'm too tired. I'll do it in the morning." And I'm like, busted. This guy's a fake. This is a photo.
Right. This is some guy down in his parents' basement, right?
Yeah.
He's probably got 3 or 4 or maybe more different accounts. But why on earth would it come to mind to be a fake Spud Webb?
I mean, people know who Spud Webb is. Maybe Spud Webb isn't very computer savvy to where he would know that someone's faking him. you can get a blue check mark if you say the right things, and then if you get a blue check mark, people like you and JR and other wrestlers that he's trying to get phone numbers from are going to give their phone numbers to
you're
him.
real.
Yeah, you're going to give your phone number out to this guy. So some mark is in this basement getting JR's number and Darius Rucker's number and just collecting all these phone numbers.
I sent a message back to Darius. I said, Darius, this guy's a phony, and he sent me back and said, "Oh, thanks."
So
I hope he did. I hope we give him his phone number too.
So the next day in the morning, I'm like, "Hey, where's that photo?" He goes, "I'll have a long meeting with the Hawks to be a Hawks ambassador." He goes, "I'll do it after," and then he unfollowed me, and then I couldn't message him anymore. So I knew it was fake, and then I reported the account, and then a couple days later, it was taken down.
The account was suspended.
So he's off. So, but yeah, I mean that's people. Well, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Before he passed away, someone tried to make a fake Bobby the Brain Heenan account. It had a blue check mark and everything, but it wasn't even him.
People were like sending money to that thing too.
I know.
Right.
So, it's good to get those things shut down because, people fall for it. And
I have another good friend in country music, Randy Hauser, and Randy just had that. He sent a message I saw where he just had some people that they didn't have the blue check mark, but they were Randy Hauser accounts with his name and everything. And apparently they had been, whoever was doing this one account of his had been duping some female fans into talking to him on messages and stuff like that. And the female fans thought they were actually talking to Randy Hauser. And this person who was the phony was telling them that Randy was he was going to leave his wife and was going to come and get engaged to these women. I guarantee the next thing was, send some money or something like that. But Randy had to go online too and just say, look, mine's the only one with the blue check mark beside it. Don't fall for any of this other stuff. And then I looked, and I've got a couple of fake accounts out there.
Yeah, there's a couple. We got a lot of fake Facebook profiles that say they're Jerry Lawler.
Crazy.
People are crazy, man. People are just delusional when it comes to faking like they're some celebrity. It's scary. It has to be scary.
Yeah.
Well,
delusional.
Yeah. Especially if you're.
I remember the first time somebody told me I was delusional. I almost fell off my unicorn. It was crazy.
Okay, speaking of one-liners, I was watching some classic Memphis wrestling, and you in some of your interviews, and you were talking. I forget who you're talking. I think you're talking about Joe LeDuc, and you were saying that he was so ugly when he was a kid. His mom had to slingshot some food to him in the corner.
Yeah, I had several of those. Yeah, that feed him, stood him in the corner, feed him with a slingshot. He was so ugly, his mom breastfed him through a straw.
Classic stuff. Classic. Well, getting off the Spud Webb fake account that I saved you from. Imagine giving out your personal number, King.
We did. Laura did. It was out there.
Well, their house phone. You're never.
Those phony guys got it, but yeah,
you never.
It's
really
a landline, and you would never really use it. No,
yeah,
right.
So it's not like your mobile phone when you could text you, blow you up all the time, and
right.
Hey, it's a Spud Webb. Why don't you come out to a Hawks game? I'll treat you. All right. So this week I want to talk about some of the crazy matches Jerry the King Lawler has been involved with over the years, because it's been 20 years, King, since. Probably the one match when you think of Mick Foley, Undertaker, that comes to mind is that Hell in the Cell match in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Undertaker threw Mick Foley, Mankind, off the top of the cell and then chokeslammed him through the top of the cell onto the ring. You were ringside. You had some legendary calls, you and JR, that echo through the history of WWE. But I know we talked about it last year when anniversary came up, but King, it's been 20 years since that match, and it has to be one of the most memorable matches you ever called.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny that you're mentioning that. I mean, that match has gone down in history, I think, as maybe one of the most famous WWE matches of all time. Just when you think of, at least in the top three, I would say the top three matches of all time in WWE, that match would have to come to mind. And it was so funny that this past weekend, I was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the Keystone Comic Con. Me and Michael Kingston and his Headlock Comics, and we were setting up at a booth there. And right next to us, I'll tell you more about this in a little bit. Right next to us was Jim Cornette. But some of the WWE current stars were there too, making appearances. Nikki Bella was there, AJ Styles was there, Daniel Bryan was there, and I got a chance to talk to all of those guys for a few minutes. But then I got a chance to talk to the guy who now is, I guess he's like an agent in the fact that he accompanies the talent on the personal appearances like this, and it's Timmy White.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Timmy and I sat down. He came over. We talked for a long time. And it was funny that subject came up. Timmy was the referee in that match.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how the fact that, when poor old Mick came off the top rope and went through the desk, he was there and he looked down. He said, I really thought he was dead. He said he looked down at him, and suddenly Mick raised his head up and he smiled at him. He smiled at Timmy, right? And Timmy was saying, "You okay? You okay, Mick? You okay?" And he said Mick just smiled, and he said here was his tooth was sticking out of his nose. It had been knocked clear up into his, up in there and coming out of his nose. And that's the first thing I remember. I saw that same expression from the announce table, But and he said, and Mick said, "Can we go home now?" And so it was like, it wasn't, "You're okay? Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah, let's go home." So it was like, then they continued on. And then he still went back up on the cage and fell through the top of the cage again.
Yeah. Then he had thumbtacks towards the end of the match.
And that's what Timmy White said. He said, when I counted, when I counted 3, I got back to the locker room. He said, I had about 30 or 40 thumbtacks sticking into my, from my forearm down to my wrist. Oh. And he said it was just insane. And he said that the Undertaker told him one time, he said the Undertaker actually said, "Go see if he's breathing. Just check him, see if he's breathing." So, I mean, even the Undertaker thought that a couple of times, I think after that second fall, down there, that we really thought that was the end of Mick Foley.
And you as the announcer, and I think JR said this, and you said this too when you guys were on this podcast together several months ago, is that you guys want to call stuff organically as it happens. You guys don't want to know what is going to happen.
Yeah, and neither one of us, JR or I, had no idea that either one of those crazy bumps were going to happen.
Yeah.
That Mick was going to be thrown off the top of the cell, or that then to go back up there again, and that the cell was going to give way and he fell down. That's the one. If you go back and look at that, when he fell, it's just, the guy's like Superman. It looks like he landed right on the back of his head and his neck, like it would have broken somebody's, probably a normal person, it would have broken their neck. And then went on past that, and then, like you said, the thumbtacks. But the cool thing was, JR and I had no idea that any of that was going to happen. So it was that was the most passionate commentary that I can remember, because it was what we were watching was just so unbelievable.
Well, I bring it up because there was a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view this past Sunday for WWE. And then after the pay-per-view, they had a Mick Foley special where he did like a stand-up show in Pittsburgh back in June. And he talked in depth about the match and gave some tidbits that maybe not everybody has found out, that knows about this match. First, Vince McMahon, before the pay-per-view started, Vince went to Mick and said, "Have you been on top of the cell?" And Mick said yes. Well, that was a lie. Mick never went on top of the cell before the pay-per-view. And he said, "Are you comfortable up there?" And Mick said, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely comfortable up there." And Mick said if he would have climbed up there before the pay-per-view and just to get a little bit of idea what it's like up there, he never would have done the spot.
Would not have done it, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I Undertaker, he went in with a broken ankle to the match. He had a broken ankle going into this match, so he worked the whole match with a broken ankle, and he remembers Terry Funk. Terry Funk was one of the guys that came down to the ring when Mick fell through the cage or off the cage to kind of be at the side of Mick.
Right.
And when Mick is in the ring and Terry Funk goes back in the ring, Mick woke up, and his first thought was, where are these shoes? Terry Funk got choke slammed out of his shoes by the Undertaker, and there's a pair of shoes in the ring.
He's saying, whose shoes are these, right?
Whose shoes are these? It wasn't like, hey, am I still living? Am I still, what? Am I okay? It was, where do these shoes come from? They were Terry Funk shoes. So, but King, a little segue into what I want to talk about this week. You've had some crazy matches over the year to where they're memorable not because of the match itself, but just because of what took place outside the ring, or even the type of match it was. And the first one that comes to mind, and we haven't really talked about it in depth on the podcast, is the concession stand match in Tupelo, Mississippi. You and Bill Dundee versus the Blonde Bombers. And this one got crazy, out of hand, and ended up in the concession stand. And Lance Russell is doing commentary. It's just legendary commentary from Lance, trying to kind of give a perspective of what's going on, but the camera picked up everything, and you guys are just going nuts in the concession stand after this match.
Yeah, it was down in, like you said, Tupelo, Mississippi, and that match has gone down sort of like if you're a Memphis wrestling fan and we're from our territory, that match has gone down in history almost as much as the Terry Funk Empty Arena match. I mean, that's one of the two matches that everybody says they were either at or saw it live or watched it on TV. They've all seen that match, and it just became known as the Tupelo Concession Stand Brawl. And it was a match. Tupelo was like every Friday night town in the Memphis territory, and the local promoters was this real country couple. They were dear people and everything, but they were just as country as cornbread, from Tupelo, Mississippi, named Herman and Gene Sheffield. And Herman, I mean, they just had the most Southern accent, and they were great people, but they lived there in Tupelo, and it was they were the local promoters of the show on Friday nights. And they were in charge of the concession, and they had the building already, and they rented out this. It wasn't really an arena; it was almost like an old warehouse. The building is still there to this day, and it's like I think they said a big ice house of all things, where these companies that sell ice on the side of the road, the bags of ice. This is like a storage warehouse for this big ice company now. But anyway, Herman and Gene Sheffield were the promoters, and of course Jerry Jarrett was booking the territory at the time, and I don't know how he convinced Herman Sheffield to go through with this, but it was Jerry's idea to have the film crew. We didn't have the film crew in Tupelo every week. It was just a special thing when we had Lance to go down on a Friday night and have to be back in Memphis, for the live show the next morning. But anyway, Jerry said, we're going to let the guys after the match go in and just fight and brawl all over the concession stand, and we're going to film this thing. And Herman Sheffield, at first he was very hesitant, and then we found out later why he was so hesitant, because his pride and joy in that whole concession stand, in his whole promotion of the thing that he made the most money out of in the wrestling business, was his popcorn machine.
Oh boy, you can't destroy the popcorn machine.
Oh my gosh, he had this big, he had a movie theater type popcorn machine there, one of those 6 foot tall ones with the glass front, the glass doors that you open and everything. So that was right in the middle of his concession stand. And Jerry finally agreed. He got him to agree to let us fight in there. But then all he would say was, please, I'm begging you, please don't break my popcorn machine, right? And so if you go back and you YouTube and whatever, you'll actually see Herman Sheffield, standing right there beside the popcorn machine. I think he got mustard, ketchup, and all the condiments all over himself, but he was guarding that popcorn machine with his life. But yeah, we had our match in the out in the arena. It was for the Southern Tag Team Championships, and my partner was Bill Dundee. Jerry Calhoun was the referee, and our opponents were the Blonde Bombers, who was Larry Latham and my cousin Wayne Ferris, and who later on, of course, became the Honky Tonk Man. Larry Latham went on to become the main Moondog. So anyway, the match was over, and Lance was doing the commentary on the end of the match, and the match was where they did the filming from was actually in the upstairs, almost in like a second story of this warehouse, and they're like shooting down on this action, and then the match ends, and Lance does the wrap up and say, well, that's it, we're saying goodbye here from the Tupelo Sports Arena. We'll see you all next week.
Time is running out right now. We're going to have to call it quits as our time is up on Championship Wrestling. It looks like that they are outside the ring. This is Lance Russell from the Tupelo Sports Arena.
And so anyway, boom, the camera like cuts off, but you just hear the sound, and then the fight goes. It just takes a few seconds for us to get down the the hallway from where the actual arena was, then back to where the concession stand was, and the steps down from the steps leading downstairs from where Lance was filming went right by the concession stand. And so, all the film goes dark, and then all of a sudden you hear Lance go, hey, Mike, which Mike Shields was the cameraman. He said, Mike, get the camera over here. I mean, they got a hell of a fight going on down here in the concession stand, right?
Hey, Mike, can you get the camera? They got a hell of a fight going on down here. See, can you get it down? Let me get the light stand off here. Bring it on. We'll go back and edit this. And
so, boom, all of a sudden, powered up on the film camera and everything, and so he comes over, and they're shooting right down from the top of this stairwell right down to this action in the concession stand.
I know it. We'll edit it back in. Can you get it rolling? What you're looking at is the wildest fight we've seen. Latham and Ferris and Dundee and Lawler in the concession stand, all four of them bleeding, pounded each other. Lawler fired a gallon jug. They're banging away.
And here's me and Dundee fighting Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham, and we're picking up these huge jars of ketchup and mustard and throwing them in everything that we could, throwing all the candy, and not the popcorn machine, but the popcorn, and hitting each other with pots and pans and everything that you could imagine that was inside that concession stand. And it just went on, and finally Jerry Jarrett, I think you could see Eddie Marlin, who was our promoter, and all the fans. They couldn't get over the counter, but all the fans were right there watching this action, just in arm's distance away, arm's reach. But they couldn't get over the counter into the concession stand where we was. Finally, Jerry Jarrett, I think, said, "Man, we gotta put a stop to this. This is getting way out of hand." Herman's having a heart attack about his popcorn machine, so Jerry Jarrett crawls over the counter, gets in there, and tries to get between us.
Promoter Jerry Jarrett, although he is not a promoter here, trying to get him to stop. He's got Dundee separated.
And he gets knocked down, gets ketchup mustard poured all over his clothes, got ripped off by the Blonde Bombers after Bill and I had left. And so then Bill and I had to come back in and save Jerry Jarrett. And it was quite like I said, just a wild melee. And it was something that nobody had ever seen before. And that's where we got that was one of the things that gave us the reputation of being hardcore before the word hardcore was even invented in wrestling. I mean, this was back in the 70s. And, this was like a true hardcore match back in that day that nobody had ever seen anything done like that before.
Yeah, June 15th, 1979 is the date. Wow. When this happened. And, doing some research about it, I guess the guy's wife had no clue that it was all a work, and she was furious with you guys after the brawl.
Oh, yeah, that's Gene. That was Herman and Gene Sheffield. And Jerry told Herman that he was going to tear the place up, and then Herman, because it was one of those, I'm not going to say he was henpecked, but Gene wore the pants in that family, right? And so Herman was actually afraid to tell his wife what was going to happen. And then when she found out, then when it happened, she was livid. I mean, she was screaming at everybody.
So, I mean, after that, someone had to clean it up. Did you help clean it up, Jerry?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Herman and Gene.
Oh.
No, I did not. That would have been Herman and Gene, and that may have been why she was so upset with everybody. Now we just couldn't we had to get in the shower and stand in the shower and get all the mustard and the ketchup and all of that stuff off of it. It was insane.
Now all the candy's destroyed. You had condiments destroyed. Food is destroyed. I mean, that comes out of who pays for that?
Yeah, well, Jerry Jarrett, the Jerry Jarrett and the wrestling company paid Herman for all the concessions that got destroyed and for all the damage that was done. He paid, but you know what? It was well worth it because we went on and on with that, with return matches with those guys from that piece of footage from that film for a long, long time. And then later on, we recreated it up in I think Kennett, Missouri, at a National Guard Armory with me and Jeff Jarrett against Larry Latham and anyway, it was against the Moondogs at the time. And so two of the guys that were in the original concession stand battle, me and Larry Latham, we recreated this thing in the concession stand in Kennett, Missouri. And I'll never forget we were in there, and I don't know if it was Jeff. Anyway, Spot, which was Larry Latham, the Moondog, and Jeff were battling at the moment. And me and the other guy were over doing something. But anyway, Spot, I think Jeff Jarrett picks up this long mop, and he goes to hit Spot with it. And the mop was so long that it hits the neon, these long fluorescent light bulbs that were keeping the place lit up in there. He bust out 4 fluorescent light bulbs with that mop, and all of that glass came down and fell on him and the Moondog. And it was as wild as the original Tupelo concession stand, but just because the fact that it had already been done once before, it never got, it never made quite the notoriety as that first one did. But it was good as well.
Full now with the king. Jeff grabs that chair, catches Moondog Spike with it again. Right near the concession stand in Kennett, Missouri. USWA wrestling. Oh, look out. Again, Lawler with that trash can. Jeff picks that can up. Boy, he almost caught him with it. Jeff Jarrett, and he's got some help now. The king, Jerry Lawler, comes out. Moondog's in that concession stand. Comes out, Lawler swings that broom again.
The first one, that had to be fun for you. Was it fun, be able to throw around anything you wanted?
Cool. Yes, that part was a lot of fun to do all that stuff. You're slipping and sliding, and you're busting, trying to bust jars of ketchup and mustard and all of this stuff all over your opponents. And we were just. That was the great thing about Larry Latham, who, like I said, became the main Moondog forever. He was, he was game for anything. You could hit this guy. I'll never forget. There's a photograph from the Mid-South Coliseum where we had match week in and week out against the Moondogs. Me and Bill Dundee and me and Jeff Jarrett and all these guys against the Moondogs. And it was, the old expression was, you hit these guys with everything but the kitchen sink. Well, we actually brought a kitchen sink, one of those big double kitchen sinks. And there's a photograph of me slamming one of them on the head with this big double aluminum kitchen sink. But that was the great thing about Larry. You could hit him with anything, do anything to him. He would never complain. He would never say, don't worry. He's just like one of those guys. Don't worry about it. So it was really fun in those concession stand battles. If just like you're just looking around for something else to hit these guys with. It was a lot of fun.
It's crazy to watch. It's crazy. Lance adds to it. I don't think it would have been memorable.
Oh, Lance was great.
But it was great. Lance, he was great. His voice adds to it, his commentary. And when the camera kicks back on, I think the cameraman's cord got caught on something. And he's like, come on, trying to get the cord off being caught and try to get him down the stair. It was just It was perfect chaos.
Yeah, and just, and at that time to hear Lance even say anything that would be close to profanity on the microphone that may have been the first time, Lance said, "Mike, come on, they got a hell of a fight going on down here." Which, I mean, that just added so much realism to hear Lance say you got a hell of a fight going on,
Yeah. That's the craziest probably match I've, seen you be a part of. That's, outside the ring, taking place, in a different part of the arena or.
I'll tell you some other matches. I've had a few matches that I really wasn't crazy about it that turned out to be kind of wild. Scaffold matches. God. And that was, those were sort of reminiscent of what Mick Foley went through, where he fell off the top of the cage. We had some scaffold matches with the scaffold being like 15 feet high in the air, in like Louisville. And that was where, if I'm not mistaken, that was where our original hard feelings came about with Paul Heyman, or Paul Dangerously at the time. We built up this big scaffold match for Louisville. And I mean, we built it up for weeks, and then, we get there that night and had set up the scaffolding, and he went out and looked at it and he said, "I can't go up there."
Yeah.
I said, "What do you mean you can't go up there?" He said, "I can't. I'm afraid of heights. I cannot go up there." So anyway, I think I don't know if the story is that we came to blows some kind of way. I'm not sure what happened. Somebody's jaw might have got fractured or something. I don't know.
Well, it wasn't yours.
I can't really remember. That's one of those things I can't really remember what happened. But anyway, there was some little bit of hard feelings with Paul and I over the fact that he wouldn't go to the top of the scaffold, I think. But those things they're very, very scary, very, very high up there. I think I saw one. Jim Cornette was in one.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I think he may have twisted or sprained or broken an ankle.
I think he broke his leg.
Those things.
Look at Cornette!
Could have been. Yeah. They were dangerous. I didn't like them at all either.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Well, you were part of barbed wire matches with Dutch Mantel.
Barbed wire matches were. I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with barbed wire matches. I made sure that somebody else was getting cut with barbed wire, not me. So, it was like, I don't know. I wasn't too afraid of the barbed wire matches.
Now, was that real barbed wire back in the day?
Let's see. What else did we have?
Or was that gimmick barbed wire?
Do what?
Was that real barbed wire back in the day, or was that gimmick barbed wire?
No, I've never. Yeah, I guess they do make gimmick barbed wire, but they didn't make gimmick barbed wire back when we were having those matches in the 80s or 90s. They hadn't come up with the plastic barbed wire yet that they would put around bats and things like that. No, it was always real barbed wire.
Yeah. The one that comes to mind is with you and Dutch back in '82. There's the memorable one. You and Dutch went back and forth for a long time, and then you guys were tag teamed. Then it was you and Dutch versus Buddy Landell and Bill Dundee in a Texas death match that ended at the 26th fall. And for those who don't know what a Texas death match is, do you want to explain, King?
Well, Texas death match means that, let's see, I think falls would count anywhere. And not only that, it just you just went until, basically, I'd say falls count anywhere. You could get pinned anywhere, but in reality, falls just didn't count. I mean, it could go one fall or it could go 30 falls, but you just went until one team couldn't answer the bell. Mm-hmm. And so I think you said, what did it go, 26 or 27 falls in that one match?
26 falls in this match, but it took place in 1986.
1986. Well, one of the cool things about that, I always enjoyed working with Dutch. I enjoyed working with him as a partner. I enjoyed working against him when he was my opponent. He was a classic guy on interviews, and he was so believable, and so his interviews were always so good, very quick-witted, and it was, there was always this, I don't know, like this. Not really where we were not necessarily friends or anything, but there was always this this feeling of, oh gosh, competition or whatever between the two of us. I think because of the fact that Dutch and I were born on the exact same day, November 29th, 1949. I think actually I was born at 8:20 in the evening. The Dutch was born earlier in the day. So I always kidded him about the fact he's an old man, a lot older than me and all this kind of stuff. But there was this, there was that feeling of competition between Dutch and I about mainly because of the fact that we were exactly the same age and enjoyed working with him. And then when we got to that program that you're talking about, Bill Dundee and Buddy Landell, those two guys, when we stuck those two guys together, there was a natural chemistry between those two guys that was just amazing. We did some things that you can still look up on YouTube called the Bill and Buddy Show.
What is this? Now, what in the Sand Hill do you guys think you're going to do with that? The Bill and Buddy Show. Hey,
Okay,
just let
I'll
him
be
hang
Dave Brown, you be Lance Russell, because Dave rings the bell. Here we go, get him out here. Okay, fans, exciting match coming.
And it was just like where Bill Dundee and Buddy Landell kind of took over the show. I think that we let them take over my Jerry Lawler show one week, and they had a segment in the Saturday show called the Bill and Buddy Show. And it was hilarious. These guys were really funny. And if you knew Buddy Landell, he was one of the funniest guys to ever be around in the business. He was a classic jokester, and just it was like he was never. You almost couldn't. I can't ever remember really ever having a real serious conversation with Buddy Landell, because he just everything was a joke to Buddy. It was classic. But one time I do remember where Buddy wound up outsmarting himself. One of the last times he was in our territory, he won the Southern Heavyweight Championship belt, and then he didn't like his payoff, so he left and he took the belt with him. And so he calls me up and he said, "I'm not coming back, and I deserve like $1,000 more or something like that." And then I said, "Well, how we going to do this? We want our belt back." And he said, "Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll send the belt back COD for $1,000. So I said, "Okay." So anyway, that's what he did. He sends the belt back like FedEx or however I don't know if it's post office or whatever, but anyway, where it would arrive, and I would have to pay $1,000 to get the belt, right? So, he tells me he sends it, and I know it's going to arrive like the next day. So I call a buddy of mine that's on the sheriff's department, and I said, "Man, here's what's happening here." I said, "This guy's holding us up, and he's sending our property. It's our belt, and he's sending it back, but I can't get it unless I pay $1,000." And he said, "Oh, is that right?" So next thing you know, the sheriff shows up. And when the FedEx guy or the postman, whoever it was, comes to the door with the $1,000 belt box, right? The sheriff said, "I'll take that. That's stolen property inside there." And the mailman or whatever just said, "Okay, no problem." And he just goes and gets back in his truck, and the guy hands me the belt and the box with the belt in it, and I didn't have to pay the $1,000 or anything. So. Buddy was upset about that for a long time too, but I think we got over it and got past it and we're back on good terms after that.
Can you remember the first phone call when Buddy realizes he's not getting $1,000?
I do not. I don't know if I had the nerve to actually call him and tell him that he wasn't going to get it, or if I didn't answer the phone when he was calling me after he realized he wasn't going to get it. I don't know. I don't think we ever actually had a conversation about that after that.
Do fans not realize, does that happen more than people think, of guys trying to do something to get more money or to get money they think they deserve?
Well, it used to happen a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day before contracts and that sort of stuff. I mean, there was, I guess the the big contract things came about with the WWE, and then even that was, later on with the WWE, but then once you signed your contract, you knew what you were going to make, your downside or whatever, you were going to make a certain amount no matter what. But before that, I mean, guys would like, I don't know, they would all the time they would complain about payoffs, but sometimes they would try to hold people up. And if you think back about it, there was a big classic story about Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
If you remember that, I think Jeff held up Vince, and that's why a lot of people were surprised that Jeff was able to get back into, make it into the WWE Hall of Fame after the hard feelings that were there when Jeff held him up for, I think it was a match with China or something like that.
I think it was over the Intercontinental title, and he wanted to. It was over the belt or something, and it was like $100,000 that he held him up for or something, and I think Vince paid him.
Exactly.
Then Jeff left for WCW, and then fired him when Vince bought back Vince bought WCW, and obviously Jeff was part of WCW, and Jeff was instantly fired, which led to TNA and that whole shindig with Jeff and his career. But yeah, that's probably the most memorable one when it comes to wrestlers holding up promoters for money because they think they earn a lot more than what they.
Yeah, well, and that used to happen a lot of times. And like I said, like in the case with Buddy Landell, it happened to us with this the wrestler Snowman. A lot of times these guys would get their hands on the championship belt and then they'd take off and not show up unless they got more money. And that was the thing with this Snowman character. I had to want to sue this guy 3 or 4 times and take him into court. And, the judge would always order, okay, give the belt back. Yes, sir, I will, Your Honor. And then you'd leave court and they'd never see it still. So, but yeah, people used to do that a lot with titles, especially.
Got to give kudos to Mark James for this book because, going through, you find a lot more in-depth information about these matchups that you had and rivalries over the years, a little bit more information with Mark. And we got to get Mark James on soon.
Yeah, we're going to have him on. I talked to Mark just the other day about this. He did a book signing at Memphis Comics and Collectibles there, and Randy Hales was on hand with his Memphis wrestling DVDs from Power Pro Wrestling, and Mark was there, signed a bunch of books, and his brother Chris James was there. Chris just made me another brand new beautiful red crown. And then he also fixed up. I think we tweeted this out recently. I met him over at the barbecue restaurant there on Germantown Parkway, and he brought me the new red crown. And then he had a crown that had to be 20 to 25 years old. That was one of the old original crowns, and he had taken that and kind of refurbished it and made it look like brand new. It really, really turned out really well. But we got to get Mark on. We need to have Mark and Chris on, talk about. Chris got some good crown stories that we can reminisce about.
Oh, definitely.
And speaking of stories and reminiscing, I told you just a while ago that I was with Jim Cornette at this past weekend at the Philadelphia Comic Con, and it was kind of crazy. Like I said, a bunch of WWE talent there. Cornette had a booth there. Tommy Dreamer had a booth there, and then they actually had live matches every single day. They had a ring set up, and Tommy Dreamer had a bunch of his students. I guess Tommy's got a wrestling school up there in either New Jersey or Pennsylvania, and he had his students put on several wrestling matches. I think Tommy even wrestled in one of the matches there at the Comic-Con. But yeah, it was fun. Every person that would come by my booth and I'd sign a picture for him or something. And I say, hey, are you going to go and talk to Cornette? And they'd say, oh yeah, we got to go talk to Jim Cornette. And to every person I'd say something nice about Donald Trump to him.
Yeah.
And so that was just a long running battle for the whole weekend. I would see, next thing you know, see Jim Cornette over there screaming at somebody, about Donald Trump. And and also he is, I conned Jimmy into, well, I didn't have to con him into it. Jimmy is such a great guy, and the fact that he remembers his roots so well that, coming up in Louisville just as a wrestling fan and going to the matches every Tuesday night in Louisville Gardens and watching me and Jerry Jarrett and then going from there to getting to be a cameraman for us. He started taking pictures and at the matches there in Louisville when he was just probably 11 or 12 years old or a little older than that. And then he sort of became our he became an actual photographer for our wrestling company, and he went on from that to, I mean, some of the most, most classic pictures of all time, and as far as our wrestling company goes, were taken and made by Jim Cornette. And so then, of course, went on from that to get into the business, started managing, and he's wound up having a great career. But he always remembers the fact that where he started from was just our Tennessee territory there. So I think he feels that indebtedness. If ever I ask him for a favor, he's always right there to oblige. And I had to ask him for a favor here at the Comic-Con there, and the fact that about a year ago I was doing an appearance in New Jersey at a comic and collectibles store there in New Jersey, and signing autographs. There was another wrestler there with me, and I can't remember who it was. But anyway, we were there doing an appearance, and we were signing autographs. And all of a sudden, this fan comes in, and this guy, he's known. I think you can look him up on Google or something. He's known as the Lego Man, or the Lego guy, I think it is. Okay. And this guy has some just unbelievable things, all sorts of things out of Legos, right? And so he had made a couple of championship belts out of Legos, and he brought this one to me, and I guess he had seen that I had done these Dukes of Hazzard festivals in the past, where with with Cooter, the guy from the TV show, and then of course I was just with John Snyder. We re-recorded the a music version, a song of the theme from Dukes of Hazzard. Anyway, this guy comes and he's got this amazing championship belt of all things. It's all orange, black, and everything, and it's a championship belt for the Dukes of Hazzard for some reason. I mean, it's a big old championship belt, and it's been signed by everybody from the cast of Dukes of Hazzard, Cooter and John Snyder and Bo and Lou. I mean, everybody had signed this championship belt. It was a really nice piece, but the thing was over 5 feet long and weighed probably 75 pounds at least. Jeez. And this guy said, "Here, I'm going to give this to you." And I thought, wow, this is nice, but what the heck am I going to do with it, right? And I said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll put it up in my club down in Memphis. It'll be a beautiful piece to hang on the wall. It's a really exceptional looking thing. And so I'll put it up there. But I told the guy, I said, "Now, I can't. There's no way I can put this thing on the plane and fly it back. Can you have it shipped to me? I'll pay for it, whatever, if you can ship it down." So he said, "Yeah, I'll get it down there some kind of way, right?" So anyway, a whole year goes by, and every now and then I'd get a text from the guy and saying somebody may be coming down with the belt. Anyway, a year goes by, and finally I quit hearing from him. I never got the belt, right? So here in Philadelphia last weekend, here this guy comes walking up to me at my table again, and he's got this Dukes of Hazzard belt again. This 5 foot long, 75 pound Lego belt, right? And all signed and everything. And he also has with him this big portrait. I mean, this thing is probably 4 feet by 5 feet. This big, huge portrait of Jim Cornette and his wife, done out of Legos. Wow. And it was, I'm telling you, it was amazing too. And Jim is just like, he's flabbergasted over this. He loved it. And he calls his wife and she says, "Are you bringing it home?" He says, "Yeah, I think I can get it in the SUV." Because Jim will not fly. So he drove from Louisville up to Philadelphia for the show, right? So anyway, somehow I told the guy, I'll get it home some way. So he left this championship belt with me. And then I imposed upon Jim Cornette. I said, "Jim, is there any way at all that you could get this thing into your SUV and get it down to Louisville for me? Because then sometime in November, like the end of November, there's a Comic-Con in Louisville, and I'm going to drive up to Louisville and for that Comic-Con, and then I could put this thing in my car and bring it back down to Memphis." So I guess he felt, and I know he hated to do it. I know it was miserable to load that thing up in his car and all that, but he agreed to do it. So he's got this Dukes of Hazzard belt now at his house down in Louisville, and he's going to bring it to me, or I'm going to come and pick it up in Louisville in the end of November. But anyway, I don't even know what that story meant.
Yeah, the Lego man is Curtis Monk.
Yeah, it's him. Yes. You looked him up? You
I
found him?
looked him up on the good old Google machine here.
Man.
Curtis Monk is the Lego guy.
Yeah.
75
Does it show
pounds.
any pictures of the championship belts or anything?
No, I Googled some belts and I don't think he's posted any or anything like that, but I can imagine.
Does it show any of his portraits or anything that he's done with that?
I didn't do any.
This portrait that he did of Jim, the two big faces of Jim and his wife, it was amazing that this guy could do this out of Legos.
Did you get a photo of the belt?
I do have a photo of the belt somewhere. I'll try to find that and tweet it out.
Yeah, put it up on Twitter.
On Twitter.
On Twitter. What do you do? So you'll be in Florida. Anything coming up when you get back to Memphis?
The 27th, as I told you, the 27th, we got a big wrestling show again. Live wrestling down on Beale Street, absolutely free. Come on down. I'm going to be this crazy thing that happened at the last show. I think I told you about. Anyway,
I was there, King.
Yeah, you were there. So anyway, this time my partner is going to be Dangerous Doug Gilbert, the guy that ran over me. Him and his brother Eddie ran over me in a car in the Channel 5 parking lot in Memphis, and he and I are going to be partners on the 27th down there in Memphis.
It's going to be called the Downtown Meltdown.
Downtown Meltdown. Then the next night, I'm somewhere up in close to Baltimore with James Ellsworth. He's got a show up there. I'm going to be up there for that. And then after that, man, it's the New York City Comic Con, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th of October.
James Ellsworth just keeps booking. He keeps wrestling.
Just keeps showing up, doesn't he?
I know. He doesn't learn.
Oh, and he was there at the Philly Comic Con too. He was actually there at the same table with me for one day.
Oh wow! Did he have on his Hire Ellsworth T-shirt on?
No, but he was saying, he said, "Man, I just love this." He said, I just sit by the phone waiting for him to, think of something else for me to do. He said, "It's great, keeps my face out there and keeps me my name out there." And so, and I'm sure it's a great situation for them. They can just boom, call him up, throw him right in there, and works well for him and them.
Last week before I left to come back home to Cleveland, King, we didn't mention this on the podcast at all, but last week was 9 days ago, give or take a week ago, was the 6-year anniversary of a cardiac arrest in Montreal. So it's 6 years ago. That's crazy. Time flies.
It does when you're living. I swear at the Philadelphia Comic Con, I would have people come up to me and just like almost be in shock that I was sitting there signing autographs. They just, "Oh, how's your health? Are you okay now?"
Oh, are you okay?
And I go, are you talking about the heart thing? They say, "Yeah." I say, "That was 6 years ago this week." And they go, "Oh, really? It doesn't seem like that long." But it was 6 years ago. And that's, just as amazingly, you and I have talked about this. I have not had one problem since, because it wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't clogged arteries and all that kind of stuff. It was those dreaded elbows from Dolph Ziggler. I'll never believe anything else. And so it was a cardiac arrest. Didn't do any damage to my heart, thanks to Doc Salmons. That was the first person I got a tweet from that morning. 6 years later was from Doc Sampson. I'm sorry, Doc Sampson, Mike Sampson, that was the guy, working for WWE that really kept me alive with the CPR for that 20 minutes before they could shock my heart back going again.
Yeah, and last year we did a whole episode with Doc on the podcast. So, guys, go back and listen to that episode with King and Doc Sampson talking about what transpired 5 years ago last year for that podcast. So go back and listen to that one if you want to get the 411 from the man who saved Jerry Lawler's life.
Yeah. He's the man.
Also at that show,
what else are we going to talk about? Is that it?
I think that's it. I think that's we talked about Hell in a Cell.
Next show, what? What were you going to say about next show?
Well, that show you're going to be with Ellsworth, ACW, Friday, September 28th, in Hanover, Pennsylvania. You're going to have you there, James Ellsworth. You're going to have Gilbert there.
Gilbert's going to be there.
And the Sandman.
Sandman.
So that's a jam-packed show.
That's something we started doing when you came down, and we got to stop that.
What?
One of us would say something, the other person would say, Sandman.
Sandman.
Yeah, there you go. That right there.
Sandman.
Oh, and on the 13th of October, a big show coming up at the Dyersburg State College. Well, it's not going to be at the Dyersburg State College now. It's at a different, they found an even bigger, nice place in Dyersburg, Tennessee. A big show. Burt Prentice is putting on a show up there in Dyersburg, and I'm going to be there. And a bunch of good talent for Dyersburg. That's October the 13th. They're bringing back a Moondog. They found another Moondog.
Yeah, Dangerous Doug Gilbert will be there. Bill Dundee will be there.
Bill Dundee.
Yeah.
Bill Dundee.
Dyersburg and the Family Life Center in Dyersburg.
Yes, the Family
Tennessee.
Life Center. It's a beautiful venue there. It's really nice.
Yeah, so they look for that. All information for King Store for those mystery boxes are at KingJerryLawler.com.
You're going to plug the mystery boxes again?
We plug the mystery boxes.
After all the trouble I went through with those mystery boxes. Those things became such a pain in the rear end.
Well, let's make them more of a pain for the king. Buy a mystery box.
Did you see where somebody, our friend, the young lady in the Philippines, or where's she at?
Yeah, Philippines, PJ.
Yeah, PJ in the Philippines put up a picture of, she went back and found the actual shirt that she got in the mystery box. She found a picture of me wearing it on Raw, some like in 2011 or something like that, right?
2012 SummerSlam.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's amazing. I want to know, did she watch like every single pay-per-view or Raw
I don't know.
to figure out? I mean, know. I couldn't even, I'm a huge fan of yours. I couldn't even figure out which shirt you wore on which show. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So yeah, order a mystery box, order some photos. Jerry's new shirts are up on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Oh yeah, I saw one of those. Somebody had one of those on. You put up a tweet of the new autograph shirt. That's a new shirt.
Yeah, new shirt, and only I think someone has ordered. I'm pretty sure people have ordered it, but only you and I had that new shirt for a while. So people can order that one, and another Jerry Lawler shirt is available on Pro Wrestling Tees. It's the one of I think it's a hand drawn. Picture of your face with kind of like a cover.
I drew that picture in 1975, and now they've reproduced. They put that picture, the actual drawing that I did, right on the shirt there.
Yeah,
kind of cool.
And then somebody wore the powder shirt to Owensboro. I'm sorry, and they had made you sign the back of his shirt.
Yep, that's true.
Make sure you
shirts are going like hotcakes.
Hotcakes. The King shirts. KingJerryLawler.com/shirts.
Oh, and you know what's coming up on October the 16th, don't you? In Washington, D.C.
What's that? What?
You don't know?
No.
October 16th, Washington, D.C. SmackDown 1000.
Oh, you going to be there?
The 1000th episode of SmackDown.
Are you going to be there?
I would think. How could they do a 1000th episode without the King? I was probably on 500 of them.
Yeah, and you were on the first one too.
Yeah.
Was
I really on the very first one of first SmackDown?
I believe you were. You and JR.
I wonder if there's a way to go back and find out how many SmackDown or Raw episodes I was actually on.
Well, there is a way.
There is a way?
Let's count. 1, 2,
no, please don't stop
3.
Counting.
No. International Movie Database, IMDb. They always usually have, they keep tallies.
You know who? I bet I know who would know.
Who?
Mark James.
Mark James would probably know.
Mark James would be the guy to ask on that, without a doubt. Or Antonio Braxton.
I'm looking right now.
I forget to plug this every week. Our TV show, Jerry Lawler's Memphis Wrestling, every Saturday morning is still on Channel 30, 11 o'clock every Saturday morning. So, if you're in the Memphis area, and I think now you can go to their website and check it out. The shows are there in Memphis every week.
All right, here we go. This is according to the official, International Movie Database. They're pretty official. You have been on 987 episodes of Raw.
Wow.
And it says you've been on 119 episodes of SmackDown.
Well, that's not very many.
No. Well, then again, I don't think you were, even in the first year, you and JR weren't on all of them. Michael Cole was on a lot of those, and then Taz and Michael Cole were on a lot of those.
If you remember, you know what? I don't know. We started to get the chance to talk about this, but at one of our two-man shows that we did in Nashville or Chicago, but something happened. We didn't really get around to it, but that was one of JR's. I really wanted to hear him tell the true story of that. And we need to get JR back on here and ask him that question. But I know that one of the shocks of JR's life was when they did the draft. Remember when they did the draft?
Yeah.
And they drafted JR from Raw to SmackDown. He knew nothing about it, had no clue. I didn't know anything about it. Nobody knew. And that was like, boom, a big shock. And I mean, man, that was really a hard pill for JR to swallow, I guarantee you. Yeah. I'd love to get him on and talk about what the feelings were on that and how that even actually came about.
So that reaction was organic. He had no clue.
Oh, he had no clue.
Yeah, no. Was he upset?
Oh, big time.
Big time. That was 2008, King.
That was in 2008, 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
I need to call JR and let's get him on and talk to say JR, it's been 10 years ago that this happened.
Oh, son of a bitch. What? Oh, I'll never forget that call with when Vince McMahon was revealed to be the higher power, and JR goes, "Oh, son of a bitch," and you go, "What?
Who could it be? It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch! What? It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin! Damn, I cannot believe
I couldn't believe he said that. What? What did you just say?
That was great.
Oh, man. He was great. He's great to work with.
King, we talked about a lot. We talked about the Tupelo Concession Stand Brawl. We talked about Hell in a Cell a little bit. Some of your more crazy matches. And I thought this was a good episode. Good episode to kind of relive some of your crazy matches.
And Lauren is walking by just shaking her head going, I thought you were wrapping this thing up.
Wrapping it up.
We're wrapping it up, baby. This is it. It's the wrap up.
Well, King, enjoy your time in Florida. Look forward to having you back in Memphis. I'll see you next week in Memphis.
Got a date.
I'll see you back next week in Memphis. I'll be on your front step waiting for you.
Glenn said he'll see us next week in Memphis.
She probably rolled her eyes. What'd she say? What did she do?
He said, what'd she do? What'd she say? Did she roll her eyes?
She probably did. No, I'm not coming. Just kidding. Also, make sure to check out Booking Memphis Wrestling with Jerry Jarrett and Sean Reedy every Friday on podavenue.com. There's a new episode this past week that talked about the creation of Hulk Hogan in Memphis. He also talked about Paul Heyman, Randy Savage, AJ Styles. They had Randy Hales on a couple weeks ago. The list is long, 14 episodes in for Booking Memphis Wrestling, another Pod Avenue production. Check it out. podavenue.com/Memphis is the link to get all the podcast app links to YouTube, the Podbean, the Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. Everything is there. podavenue.com/Memphis. And also,
greetings, wrestling fans. This is Dave Dynasty, host of the Dave Dynasty Show, the podcast that every week brings you nearly 2 hours of pro wrestling goodness from the Midwest. We feature interviews with the legends of the past, stars of today, and the prospects of tomorrow. We have segments that feature classic wrestling audio, whole episodes devoted to the history of Midwest pro wrestling, and much, much more. Do not miss an episode of the Dave Dynasty Show. We are available on all podcast platforms, or you can access past episodes and all of our social media links by visiting davedynasty.com. Be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
follow us on social media at Jerry Lawler, at Glenn Moore CLE, at Dinner with King. We're on all the podcast platforms. Leave us a like, subscribe, review the podcast.
And speaking of Twitter, before you get to that, I want to tell everybody that's listening right now, my buddy Mike Kingston, who does the Headlock Comics, that I do all the covers for, and man, he works so hard at these. This poor guy works so hard at the the Comic Cons, and we got the New York Comic Con coming up, and he's got a full-time job on top of that, and he's got a biochemistry degree.
Jeez.
Can you imagine going to college and he's got a biochemistry degree, and he's doing Comic Cons and he's chasing his dream and doing these comic books. But he is less than 100 followers away from 10,000 for his Headlock Comics. It's at Headlock Comics. So everybody that's listening, go online and follow Headlock Comics for my buddy Mike Kingston. Let's get him over the 10,000 follower mark.
10,000.
Shut up. Why do you keep doing that? I told you to quit doing it.
All right. Anything else, King?
That is enough.
That's enough. We'll talk to everybody next week here on Dinner with the King. Yeah.
Yeah, be sure and leave that in there. Yeah.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.